Let's take a look back at 1969, the year where Neil Armstrong walked on the moon, Richard Nixon was president, and two countries in Central America go to war over football. As you can see, Honduras is a lot larger than El Salvador. However, El Salvador was more densely populated. In 1965, the population density of Honduras was about 21 people per square kilometer, whereas El Salvador had a much higher density, with approximately 153 people per square kilometer. This led to many Salvadorians legally and illegally immigrating to Honduras in search for work and land in the 1960s. Rewind back to 1963. There's a military coup in Honduras to replace the democratically elected leader. Oswaldo Arellano seizes power with help from American forces. Why would America support a dictator? To fight communism, but in this case, there's more to the story. In short, the American-owned United Fruit Company had a monopoly on the export of bananas from Honduras. They extracted all the wealth by underpaying the workers and made Honduras poorer. The ousted president was hostile to the company, while the new ruler was very friendly, possibly because the company paid him millions. Tangents aside, Oswaldo Arellano wasn't super popular and faced heavy opposition as the economy continued to struggle. After a corrupt election, which made Oswaldo president, tensions were at a high point. Oswaldo decided to use a popular method from history to relieve the tensions: blaming somebody else. He blamed the Salvadorian immigrants for stealing land and jobs. This led to increased violence against the Salvadorian immigrants, causing many to flee home. The Salvadorian government objected to the poor treatment of its people in Honduras. Furthermore, with the already high population density, El Salvador couldn't accommodate the rush of returning migrants. Tensions spiked between El Salvador and Honduras. This all came to a head during the 1970 FIFA World Cup. El Salvador and Honduras had to face each other in order to qualify for the World Cup. The first match took place in the Honduran capital, Tegucigalpa, on June 8, 1969. The night before the match, Honduran fans harassed the Salvadorian players, keeping them up all night. The exhausted Salvadorian team lost the next day, 0-1. When the Honduran player made the game-winning goal, Salvadorian football fan Emilia Bolaños took her father's pistol and shot herself in the heart. She became a martyr for El Salvador. Her funeral was televised, and the president with his ministers trailed behind her coffin. The next match took place in El Salvador, in which the Honduran players endured similar or worse treatment. The next morning, the Honduran team traveled to the match in an armored car. Images of Emilia Bolaños were prominent, and the flag of Honduras was burned. They were forced to raise a rag in its place. Honduras lost that match 0-3. Their coach, Mario Griffin, said, "We're awfully lucky that we lost," as the Honduran team traveled back in an armored car while stones were thrown at them. Both Honduras and El Salvador villainized each other, increasing nationalism in their citizens. In Honduras, this led to even more Salvadorian immigrants fleeing home either out of fear or being forcefully expelled. Their final match took place in Mexico. El Salvador won the match 3-2. Sparked by the 12,000 migrants fleeing back to El Salvador and the possibility of hundreds of thousands more, El Salvador declared war on Honduras on July 14, 1969. El Salvador saw much success in the first day of the war, as they bombed the Honduran Air Force and led their army towards Tegucigalpa. By the next day, Honduras was quickly able to regroup its air force and bombed out the Salvadorian supply lines. By July 16th, just 2 days after the war started, the two countries were at a stalemate. The Salvadorian military's progress was halted as they reached the limit of their supply range while also losing their air advantage. On July 18th, 1969, the two countries agreed to a ceasefire brokered by the Organization of American States. This war is often called the 100-Hour War as it lasted just, 100 hours. By the beginning of August, El Salvador pulled the last of its troops out of Honduras. The football war between El Salvador and Honduras resulted in approximately 6,000 deaths, 12,000 injuries, and the displacement of 50,000 people. Today, although the two countries have normalized diplomatic relations, they continue to face economic challenges and occasional border disputes, reflecting the lingering effects of the conflict.